May 25, 1979, the Friday of Memorial Day weekend. American Flight 191, a McDonnell Douglas DC-10, is on its way to Los Angeles from Chicago's O'Hare Airport. A few minutes before 3 p.m., the plane is cleared to taxi to runway 32 right. At 3:02 p.m., it's cleared for takeoff. One of the DC-10's wing-mounted engines has ripped away from the plane, flying up and over the left wing. Gone with it are hydraulics and pneumatics, systems critical to controlling the airplane.
The pilots knew they had a very serious problem. They knew the engine had failed, but they didn't know that it had actually come off the airplane. There's no indication for that.
Look at this. Blew open engine, equipment,
The leading edge slats, which give the wing better lift at slow speeds during takeoff and landing, are controlled hydraulically. Now, with no hydraulic power on the left side, the left slats retract back into the wing.
Which means now he has less lift on that side than he has on the opposite side, so the airplane wants to roll.
An eyewitness manages to snap a photo of American 191 rolled onto its side, with its left wing pointing straight down to the ground.
Well, my supervisors had some information that they suspected it might be maintenance related. So they went to Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Both the NTSB investigation and the legal inquiry surrounding the crash of Flight 191 eventually converged on Tulsa. What was finally revealed there shocked the world of commercial aviation. "6th of June, 1979, 12 days after the crash of Flight 191, the FAA took the unprecedented step of grounding the entire fleet of DC-10s in America, a total of 138 planes. The order affected hundreds of thousands of the traveling public and cost the airlines involved millions in revenue.
It had never happened before to an American fleet. Every DC-10 in this country, or any DC-10 trying to fly to the United States, could not do so. The economic impact was huge, and at McDonnell Douglas, it was devastating. Within days, they started losing order after order after order for new DC-10s.
Every day the DC-10s were not flying, the cost and the pressure grew.
It was a very dramatic action. We had a lot of questions, a lot of concerns about the grounding the airplanes, why we did it. We had criticism from many sources.
The process that led the FAA to take this monumental step was intense. A major factor was what was discovered in the days prior to the grounding at American Airlines' maintenance facility in Tulsa, Oklahoma. During the first week of June, NTSB investigators searched through the maintenance records of the DC-10 that became Flight 191 and began to form a theory about what caused the crack in the pylon bulkhead.
I remember getting a call that was on Saturday morning. Do you think that this could be the result of a maintenance operation, such as if you remove the engine or put the engine back on? And it all dawned on me, just as clear as could be, that yes, I said, not only could it be, but I can prove it. Because there was a deformation that was occurring right at the very top of this, where the mating clevis, where the engine and the pylon come together, as if the clevis had impacted that area and had produced the downward motion onto the flange that caused the crack. In order for the clevis to go down and make an impact, it had to have been disassembled at the time when that impact occurred. That clevis would not normally be at that position. So it just became crystal clear right at that very moment.
The damage occurred almost 2 months before the crash, when during a required repair, Flight 191's left engine pylon assembly needed to be removed. Maintenance procedures prescribed by McDonnell Douglas call for mechanics to first remove the engine from the pylon, then remove the pylon from the wing. But in an effort to save time and reduce the possibility of errors in reconnecting the various components, mechanics at Tulsa planned to remove the engine and pylon as a single unit, using a forklift to support the assembly as it was being disconnected from the wing. McDonnell Douglas was aware of the procedure, but did not approve of its use.
Because if the forklift truck isn't perfectly aligned with the engine, if it's not perfectly pressurized by the hydraulic system of the forklift truck, the engine won't be properly fastened and you could do damage to the engine or the wing.
However, since maintenance of an aircraft is the exclusive responsibility of an airline, McDonnell Douglas had no authority to stop the practice.
American Airlines, as with any airline, has the authority to, based on their experience, in-service experience, modify a manufacturer's maintenance procedure, and it can be done without FAA approval.
What's more, American was using this one-step procedure on all of its DC-10s.
And on this particular aircraft, it was back at the Tulsa maintenance base for its required maintenance procedures.
30th of March, 1979. After a forklift was positioned under the engine, maintenance personnel disconnected the rear attachment point of the engine pylon assembly. But before they could remove the front attachment bolts, the work shift changed.
And while they were gone, the hydraulic pressure in the forklift had a leak in it or changed, and it tilted the pylon, which they didn't see.
This caused the rear attachment point of the engine pylon assembly to jam back up into its fitting on the wing, cracking the rear bulkhead of the pylon. The new work shift didn't notice the damage, which occurred inside the pylon, and finished what they thought was a routine repair. During subsequent flights, the crack in the bulkhead expanded until that fateful day in Chicago when it completely ripped open, causing the engine pylon assembly to tear off the plane.
On May 25th of 1979,
it was a beautiful day for flying.
Bill and Corinne Borchers, who met and married shortly after World War II,
they were a lot of fun. Yeah.
Had decided to get away from Chicago for a vacation to Hawaii. A second honeymoon, as they called it. They boarded American Airlines Flight 191 with 269 other people. It was set to depart at 3:04, loaded with enough jet fuel to get from Chicago to Los Angeles.
The O'Hare Airport Control Tower gave routine clearance to an American jetliner, Flight 191.
As the aircraft reached takeoff speed, the primary engine peeled off, damaging both the wing and hydraulic systems.
Moments later, as seen from the Channel 9 helicopter, the plane smashed into a field just north of the airport runway.
Plane had taken off but quickly dipped and rolled to the left. It was in the air for just 31 seconds. This haunting image caught the plane essentially sideways, with one wing pointed toward the ground and the other pointed toward the heavens, just before it plunged into a field off of Touhy Avenue and exploded in flames.
This huge cloud of smoke, that it was a catastrophic event.
All 271 people on the plane and 2 others on the ground had been killed.
But the disaster plan was a useless effort. There were simply no survivors.
The largest loss of life in aviation history.
It's kind of like somebody disappeared, just disappears into thin air.
Kim Jockel, Melody Smith, and Jim Borchers lost both of their parents in an instant. The pain, of course, lingered much longer. As the years turned to decades, they realized they were searching for something.
I think you're searching for a completion for your agony.
There's no closure. It takes a long time for closure.
In fact, it wasn't until 1999 that they could even visit the crash site.
There's 273 different stories and how it impacted all those lives.
So Jockel and Smith started looking for the other survivors.
We tried so hard to get in contact with reporters that names were part of the records from the crash to see if they could help us get information out. We put articles in personals of newspapers looking for anybody involved in Flight 191, and what we found is that we usually hit dead ends.
There is this gnawing voice that nothing was ever done.
There was still no memorial. Kim was working as an assistant principal at Decatur School in West Rogers Park, where the father of one of the teachers was a first responder at the crash site.
We end up telling the story to the students about Flight 191, and that there is still no place for anyone to gather. And a pretty remarkable group of 60 sixth graders said, well, we'll make that our project.
They entered a design for a memorial in a nationwide citizenship competition and won. And the memorial wall was built, each brick etched with the name of one of the people who died in the crash.
And I think that way it'll be smooth.
On May 25th of this year, it will be the 40th anniversary of the crash.
The moment of silence, which is key, is 3:04.
The sisters are working with the Des Plaines Park District to plan a memorial ceremony that will be the largest gathering of survivors ever.
The water salute. It was his idea.
And at this brick wall,
this is a very peaceful, calm place.
Tucked into the northwest corner of Lake Park in Des Plaines, two sisters have found what they've been looking for after a 40-year search, a place of comfort where they can feel the presence of their parents.
Very definitely, because this is who they died with.
There is a place where anybody who really wants to find it can come, and it is an absolutely, to me, a gorgeous tribute to 273 people that were lost.
You know, I was going to go out and drive up and down the coast a little bit. And then I talked to my cousin a couple of times, and he said, man, you're welcome to come out, but I'm going to tell you what the situation is. I ride my bike to work. He said, so if you are coming out here to kind of hang out, I don't know how it's going to work.
Because of the national gas shortage, just 2 days before he was set to go, he changed his flight.
And I don't know why I chose Atlanta, but I changed my flight arrangements on that Wednesday.
His original ticket was on American Airlines Flight 191.
Bound for Los Angeles.
The doomed aircraft set to depart O'Hare on May 25, 1979 at 3:04 p.m.
The nose and the left wing apparently hit first.
As the plane took off, the primary engine fell off.
There were multiple explosions.
It was in the air for just 31 seconds before it crashed to the ground, killing all 271 people on board and 2 people on the ground.
And I said, oh my God, that was my flight.
Gilliam is now 60 years old, a successful banker in Chicago. The course of his life forever changed because of a gas shortage. The lack of fuel kept him going.
Had it not been for the gas crisis, I would have been on that flight. Let the families know that we're impacted. You know, my prayers are with them 40 years later, because that easily could have been me. I've never forgotten about that day.